When it comes to welding wire, I think most people have a pretty narrow worldview on what's used in the industry today. Here on today's episode, we're going to cover all of them, from your hard wires to your flux-cored wires, welding specialty alloys, and what you need to weld what you got in front of you. Today, we're putting it all on the wire. Now, if you're a little bit new to welding, don't worry. We're going to be covering all the basics on today's episode, including some other things that I think every welder should know about their welding wire. The first major job to the welding wire is carrying the electrical current that we need in order to make the welding arc. That's right, there's electrical current running through the welding wire itself as it comes out the other end. And then when it hits the metal itself, it's going to establish an electrical arc. That arc is going to be hot enough to melt the base metal and the filler metal together. And that leads us to its second job, which is taking itself and depositing the filler metal into the weld joint. This is the basic theory and concept of welding in itself. A good welding wire has a lot of different beneficial properties to it, but first we have to ask ourselves, how is it made and what is it made out of? Welding wire is typically manufactured in either a solid wire or a cored wire, where the middle of it is hollowed out and not solid like the solid wire. Your solid wire is typically started manufacturing in the steel mill. That manufacturer is going to be putting all different types of alloying elements into the batch of filler metal to try to help match the AWS specification that they're required to hold that standard to. Once the QC gives the thumbs up that this wire is checked off and it's good to go, they're going to start extruding that wire. It starts off around 1/4 of an inch, then it'll extrude down into different diameters. After a little bit of an acid bath or maybe even a copper coating, now you've got some ready to weld solid wire. Now your tubular or your cored wire is going to be manufactured one of two ways, either seamed or seamless. The easiest way that I can describe it is all those alloying elements that we talked about for solid wire, they're going to put them in there too, but they're going to start this wire out kind of flat and open, sprinkle all those good bits on the inside, and as they go about extruding it to the wire that size they want, it'll fold up kind of like a taco until it touches at the seam, and that seam is closed. Whereas your seamless cored wire is going to be manufactured a little bit differently. They'll get that wire out with that empty core, and they'll use vibration in order to get all those bits in there. Honestly, the seamless wire is very nice because it's pretty much 100% moisture proof. Whereas your seamed wire, if you leave it out in the open, it's going to be susceptible to your moisture. Not only that, but the seam on that seamed wire can bust, and all those good alloying elements can come out of that wire, and now you've got just some bad wire. But when it comes to your seamless wire, you're limited in the size that you can manufacture, because when it gets down to too small of a diameter, you can't get all the good bits in there, whereas seamed wire, you can still fold it up and accomplish it. Anyway, real fascinating stuff. Funny enough, guys, we still only scratched the surface. Now we're going to get into your different varieties of welding wire, starting with your MIG welding wire. Your MIG welding wire is going to be your solid wire, but mainly for non-ferrous metals like aluminum. And then you've got your mag welding, which is practically the same thing, but do not get it confused. It'll be a solid wire like your MIG welding, but instead of an inert gas, we're going to be using an active gas. This is typically used for metals like your steels and stainless steels or your ferrous metals. Still a solid wire, but just a different gas. Now your FCAW-G is going to be a dual shield process, and we'll get into that later, but it's your flux-cored wire. Remember me talking about the cored wire that has all the bits sprinkled in and then closed up? Well, this flux-core has flux on the inside that helps the weld while it's welding, being protected from the atmosphere, as well as keeping the weld from cooling off too quickly. It's a lot like stick welding if you're familiar with it, with the flux being on the outside of the electrode. Now the flux is on the inside of the electrode. And then you have your FCAW-S, which is practically the same thing, but the alloying elements and fluxes are tweaked a little bit differently on the inside, because FCAW-S does not need an external shielding gas, where FCAW-G needs both the flux on the inside and the external shielding gas in order to properly function. Now don't worry, we're almost into the shielding gas section, you just hold your horses. Now for your MCAW, or your metal core arc welding process, it's this cored welding wire just like your flux core, but instead of that slag forming flux that's on the inside of the wire, we have different things like your arc stabilizers, metallic powders, and different alloys, making it really great for faster travel speeds. Now your metal core arc welding has nothing on submerged arc welding when it comes to deposition rates. Submerged arc welding is the only welding process that is shielded by a bunch of granular flux being just covered and dumped all around the welding pool. So as it welds, it doesn't need a gas, it just needs the big blanket of flux being covered over top of it, and then it has a big old hunk of slag to chip off of. One of the coolest parts about sub-arc is you don't need a welding hood to weld with it. The arc is completely submerged, so you've got one of the hottest, highest deposition processes out there, and you don't even need a welding hood. So what, is there only 6 types? Kinda. There may be more processes out there. The main point is that there's so many varieties and variations with your different alloying elements to weld on whatever you want. There really is an endless combinations of types of welding wire.
It really depends on what you're trying to achieve with it. What are your challenges that you're looking at with a particular weld? Let's say, for example, some heavier material, say 5/16 and up, and you have to go vertical up. Flux-cored is probably going to be your best choice. Metal core shines in its own spot as well. You got a very fluid puddle, high travel speeds usually with it. It also handles surface conditions better than a solid wire, you know.
Now, one of the biggest questions you might have when it comes to these welding processes is do I need shielding gas for this? Shielding gas is incredibly important, definitely just as important as the welding wire that you choose to use. But if you figured things out by now, everything is very subjective. It depends on the application at hand in order to weld what you want to weld with the type of gas and wire that you want to use. You remember FCAW-S and SAW, or submerged arc welding? These two processes do not require any additional shielding gas. They're plenty covered. That's actually what the S in FCAW-S stands for, is self-shielded. Adding an external shielding gas to these processes won't do you any favors. As for the others, when it comes to gas metal arc welding, you might use 100% argon or you might use 100% CO2. It depends if you want to try to MIG or mag welding, and as you guessed it, it depends on the application in front of you. You could be using an active gas like CO2, or you can be using an inert gas like argon. It doesn't even stop there. You can mix and match and do different blends of these two gases in order to do a variety of different welds. As for your metal core arc welding and your FCAW-G, or what I like to call dual shield flux core, it needs a shielding gas too. You could probably guess that's what the -G stands for. It's a dual shield process that needs both that flux and the gas, whereas the metal core doesn't necessarily have the flux, still needs that external shielding gas in order to make a good weld.
But if you are going to use a wire that needs a gas, for example, metal core, 90% argon, 10% CO2 works very well with that. For a flux core, carbon steel, 75-25 argon CO2 works very well. It's very commonly used, but also 100% CO2. And if I was, for example, welding on thinner material and didn't need a lot of energy, then I would look towards the lower end of the CO2 content. You hear people say this gas is a good mix and this gas is a bad mix. It really comes down to the application. It can be bad if it's wrong in the wrong application.
One of my favorite questions is, does size matter when it comes to your welding wire? If you're just your average Joe walking into your garage to just weld a little something for the afternoon, a general rule of thumb that I always tell people is if you have thin metal, you need thin wire. If you have thick metal, you need thick wire. It's really not all that deep. You typically get by with most of your 035 size stuff, or maybe smaller. But when it comes to just very specific applications, these wire sizes range from 023 all the way up into 16th inch diameter, even 1/8 inch diameter wire for your sub-arc welding. Now, to a production shop with, say, 15 welders or more on the floor, and they're welding thousands of feet of weld or more a day, size is everything. Time is money, and if using a bigger wire is going to save the welder time from not having to put multiple passes in order to get the weld size they're looking for, we're saving money. You might be running into some problems where your wire is actually too thick for the welding that you're doing. Maybe you're welding some dissimilar thicknesses as metal, or maybe you're welding in an awkward position on the edge of something where too much metal is becoming too much of a problem. Which in that case, now you're not saving any time for yourself because you're causing yourself some more repairs on the back end. So at the end of the day, you've got to find that happy medium where that welding wire is perfect for your application, especially the size. All welding wire, no matter how it was made or what process it was for, has an AWS classification of numbers that help tell you exactly what it is. However, if you've never seen those before, it might be really hard to decipher. What these numbers are going to tell you is the strength of the wire. They're also going to tell you what welding positions that it's capable of doing, or other alloying elements that you might find present inside it. A really common wire to weld low carbon steel and gas metal arc welding is your ER70-6. The ER at the beginning is going to stand for electrode/rod, because we can still use this as a rod and TIG wire. And then the next two numbers are going to be your value in tensile strength times 10,000. So that 70 there is 70,000 PSI in tensile strength. Next up, you have that little S and then your -6. The -6 will stand for some of those alloying bits, and that might change depending on the type of 70 series rod that you end up using. But how you know that that's a solid wire is that little S there. So anytime you see that S, you know that that's going to be a solid wire. Now, your flux core wire, on the other hand, won't even look identical to that. It'll look something like this. You have your E E71T-1. That looks nothing like the gas metal arc welding numbered classifications we looked at earlier. They're a little bit different, but kind of the same. The E stands for electrode. The 7 is going to stand for that same tensile strength that we talked about earlier in the 70S-6. Then the 1's going to be your weld position. For everything after the dash is going to tell you whether or not it needs gas or those other alloying elements in it. The biggest thing to know that it is a flux core wire for flux core is that T for tubular. Now for your MCAW or your metal core welding wire, you'll see something that looks a little bit like this. Something that stands out to me is going to be that letter C, which is going to stand for composite wire. What we can all gather from this is whether it's an S, a T, or a C. Now you can quickly figure out what type of welding wire you have in that box or that's on the spool, regardless of the color that it is. And then on the other hand, sometimes you have welding wires that don't have those letters or dashes in them. You might have something like an ER4043 or a ER5356, and those are your common aluminum welding wires. Or you might see something like an ER308 or a 316, which are classic stainless steel welding wires. These filler metals are more or less numbered to what they're compatible to weld on as far as their base metal equivalents, which can be a little bit confusing. But as long as we see that ER there, we should know that it is still a solid wire. Still not something to take to heart, because even some stainless steel flux core wires will have that ER in front of them, even though they're a flux core wire, not solid. So isn't that just great? Now, deciding on whether or not you have the right welding wire for what you're welding on is a tough one. Now we're getting down to the nitty and gritty of everything that we've learned this far. While I highly recommend you do your own research online, or maybe even just run down to your local air gas branch and ask a representative what they think might be best, you still got to go about the process of getting an engineer and qualifying or pre-qualifying a procedure, just so you have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. The first question I'm going to ask back to someone who wants to know what wire they need is, what are you welding on? Just as there are 1,000 different varieties of welding wire that we can mix and match to do what we need for specific applications, there are thousands of different types of base metals to do the same thing. And believe it or not, there are more than one welding wire that you can weld on one type of base metal. So that leads things to be kind of confusing when you're trying to find the best option for you. If you really want to deep dive into filler metal selection for the base metal that you have, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers has developed a system for your P numbers, which are your base metals, and your F numbers, which are your filler metals. The grouping of these things all help streamline the process of knowing what filler metals match what base metals. This is how you can use different processes for different base metals. Basically, it helps streamline the process in qualifying welders or requalifying procedures without having to actually do the retesting, because we already know that this one matches that one. For example, that ER70-6 that we've talked previously before on welding a low carbon steel like A36 will weld very similar to welding a 70S-2. While the chemical makeup isn't exactly identical, the mechanical properties of these two filler metals pretty much match identically for this base metal. So we know we can use either one. So there's no sense to requalify a welder if we're just simply switching some filler metal. All that to say is, if you know what P number base metal you have, all you have to do is research a little bit to find the F numbers that are compatible with it, and you'll be able to find what filler metals that you can use for your base metal, or at least a few options to choose from. Now, welding wire plays an absolutely huge role in this industry, and knowing the right one and how to choose it will make any operator or welder extremely dangerous, knowledgeable, and efficient. I hope you learned something from this video, everyone, and thanks for watching.